Welcome to Evolution. My name is Andre Lawrence. This is my channel about electric cars from the perspective of a first-time EV owner. And this is the Polestar 2 that Polestar Canada lent me for 1 week to make a review video about. If you want to find out what I think about it and what some of the details are, stick around. I'll let you know in 10 seconds. For the last several months, I've been working with Polestar Canada's PR team to try and get a press car. Now, there weren't any press cars in Canada for quite some time, but now that they've got a Polestar store opened up in Laval, and they had some press cars arrive, I've been given the privilege by Polestar to take one of their cars for a full week, get used to driving it and figure out all the little details, and make a review video. Now, I was specifically asked to not make a comparison video of this car, which is kind of like asking Scarface to not do that huge pile of coke on the table in front of him. I'm really tempted to do what I usually do, but I promised I wouldn't, so this video is going to be what I think of the car, what a lot of the features are, and what I think of it in general. Although the Polestar 2 may have the shape of a sedan, it's actually a hatchback. Now, I think this gives it a distinct advantage over its competition, the Tesla Model 3, which isn't. With that being said, let's have a look at the trunk. When it comes to opening the trunk of the Polestar 2, there are no buttons on the exterior, but there are two ways of doing it. The first is with the key fob. There's a button on the key fob you press and hold and it will open. It is a power lift gate. And then there's the what if you've got your hands full method, and that's simply a matter of kicking underneath the bumper. Once you've opened the trunk, there are actually a few interesting features in here. Now, the first one is quite simple but quite ingenious. There's a divider to prevent things from sliding around because the trunk is quite deep. Now, I'll put the measurements of the trunk up here on the screen for you to see. Let me show you that divider now. You just have to pull up on this. It snaps into place. There is an elastic and there are some hooks here for bags or whatever you might want to put on there. So that's actually quite interesting, and I've actually used it this week. Thought it was quite cool. Now, the other interesting feature is that you can lift this bottom panel up and there is storage underneath, and I'll put a picture of that up here so you can see it up close. Essentially, you lift this. Now, it lifts up, but what do you do if you want to go under there? Well, Polestar thought of that. There's a little prop that you can put into place and then get full access to the space that's underneath. Now, you've got the level 1 or granny charger that's under there, and you can put whatever else you feel might be interesting. Now, another feature that is very cool in here is a power outlet. There is a 12-volt outlet on this side of the trunk. Now, that 12-volt outlet can be used for things like an air compressor, or you can use it for an electric cooler or whatever else that you might need. Now, the last feature that I thought was pretty cool, other than the pocket with the net that's on the other side of the trunk, is a ski pass-through. Now, for this ski pass-through to work, you have to put the armrest in the back down, and you need to flip up a little material cover. But let me show you what that looks like. So once that's opened up, you can pass through some skis, or if you're brave, you can stick in a 2x4. Since this is a hatchback with a giant opening, you can put those split seats down in the back for some extra cargo space. Now, there are no latches inside the trunk to pull them down and have them go automatically. You have to reach over from the inside of the rear doors on the top of the seats, one on each side. Now, the Polestar 2 has a traditional parcel shelf, which is a one-piece unit that's some sort of pressed material, I'm not sure what it is, covered in a nice fabric. Now, it is attached in a traditional fashion with some wires here and a couple clips, one on each side. Now, I prefer a retractable parcel shelf or cargo cover in that case, because you can retract it easily and store it usually under the floor of the trunk. And with one of these, you need to take it out and find a place for it, usually in the house. I wouldn't consider putting it between the rear seats and the front seats because it's so large. Now, let me set this aside and we'll have a look at the trunk space. With the parcel shelf out of the way, the opening being quite large, it allows for storage of some larger items. But does it stand up to the "can I sit in the trunk" test? Let's find out now. As you can tell from this completely useless test that I've done in a previous video with my Kia Niro EV, you can sit in the trunk of this car, and it does have a generous amount of trunk space, especially when you consider the opening. You can fit something quite large. One point to consider though is that it does have a sedan shape, meaning that the large item has to stop at the top right here. Now I will put the measurements of the Polestar 2 opening height from here to the floor, as well as the measurement from the lowest spot to the floor, and then I'll give you the total depth with these seats down somewhere up here on the screen for you to see, to give you a better idea. I also did the I laid down in the trunk test, and I do fit in it diagonally. I would have to have something filling in the space behind the front seat for my head to rest on, but I am only 5'8", and I'll have that up in here in meters somewhere. So once you're done and you want to close the trunk, there are actually 3 ways to do it. Now the first is to use the key fob and press and hold the trunk button. The next would be to use the button that's here on the bottom of the tailgate. And the last way is to do the same old kick under the bumper trick. That's this right here. And then it starts closing. Well, what if you want to get in there and you forgot that you've got something to get out? Well, you can kick and it'll stop again. Unfortunately, there's no way that I know of that allows you to make it go back up once it's in this position, so you're gonna have to kind of like scoot under there to grab whatever you need. Now, with that being said, to finish closing, you just kick underneath and the trunk will continue to close. Now, for all of this really cool stuff to work, you need the key fob in your pocket because it is a proximity sensor with regards to the key fob and the kick sensor that's underneath the bumper. Now, what about the front? Does it have a frunk? Yes, it does. Let's go have a look. When I opened the frunk the first time, I found a couple interesting features. Let me open it up and show you what I mean. The latch is on the right side of the hood. It's a little yellow lever. Now the hood doesn't latch like regular cars with one single mounting point in the middle. It's actually got a latch on each side of the hood. Actually looks quite robust. Now the other thing that's interesting is this frunk has an insert in it to prevent smaller items from sliding around. So you could take this out if you want to put something that's a little bit bigger. It's also got a tire mobility kit underneath this little false floor, and it's got the jack in the top portion. Something else that I found interesting in here, and I don't have any information on, but I will ask Polestar about it, see what they say. Right under here, under the hood, there's a little symbol in this thing that says Air Woofer Technology. Now, I don't know what that is, but when I find out, I'll put it in the description below. I've been driving the Polestar 2 for a few days, and there are some features that I thought were pretty interesting that I wish that were on my car. Now, on most cars, there is a button on the driver's side front door, as well as on some cars on the passenger side front door, to lock and unlock the car doors. Now, the Polestar 2 actually does something interesting. They do away with the actual physical button. There's a touch-sensitive area, but they've put it on all 4 doors. I thought that was pretty cool because sometimes you just want to open that back door and you don't have to reach over to that front one to just unlock the doors or fiddle with a key fob that's in your pocket. Another feature that I really like about this car is the fact that you don't even need to press the button on the door handle to unlock the doors. You can simply stick your fingers in the opening behind the handle. The doors will sense the key in your pocket and unlock the doors automatically. Now obviously you have to have the key fob on you for both of those features to work. Now speaking of the key fob, there is an interesting feature when you get into the car, and I'll show that to you very shortly. There are a couple last features on the exterior that I thought were points to notice. Now Polestar has decided that there were no roof rails on the top of the Polestar 2, but they've given you an option to have a roof rack in case you want to put a bike or you want to put some kayaks up there, and that's to integrate some mounting points straight into the body of the car. Now on both sides of the car, both in front and rear, Polestar has added mounting holes that you can bolt a rack that they sell on their website, and it looks like a Thule product, so I'm guessing it's excellent quality. Now Thule also seems to sell a product for this car, so you have options if you want one. The last interesting design choice that Polestar made when making this car was the fact that the side mirrors are actually one piece as opposed to having the mirror in a housing like most cars. That means that this entire body and the mirror will move when you adjust them for yourself inside the car. Now, according to Polestar's website, this reduces the size of the side mirror, increasing aerodynamics. One last note, the charge port on the Polestar 2 is on the rear driver's quarter panel. Now, depending on your preferences, that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's a good thing because having it in the front in the winter is not so great when there's snow and ice. After driving this Polestar 2 for a few days, I've gotten quite used to the features and functions of the interior. Now, some of the things that I really like are the controls. They are based on Android Automotive, Google's operating system for cars. And being an Android user, that makes everything extremely intuitive to use. But with that being said, I don't think anybody who's not using Android is going to feel uncomfortable using this. On the contrary, it's actually pretty intuitive. Now, there are certain things about the interior design that are going to be very subjective, and I'm going to tell you what I personally prefer and not, but that doesn't mean that this is not a great interior. It's actually very well laid out. Now, this is more of a sedan and more sporty, so you're sitting a little bit lower to the ground than in what I'm used to driving, and things are a little bit more closed in and more cockpit-like. It makes things easy to reach. With that being said, there is something that bugs me in this car, and it's the way the door card or the doors have the layout for the grip that you use to close the door. In most cars that I've driven, the grip position is in the horizontal spot of the door, meaning that you reach over and grab it horizontally and you close the door. In the case of the Polestar 2, they put the controls for the windows, the door locks, and mirrors in that position, and you have a more vertical thing to grab to close the door. And every time I get in the car, I keep pressing the buttons. Now, that's very subjective, and it's something that you would get used to if you drove the car for a little while longer. So I don't think it's a big issue. It's just something that I noticed when I started to drive it. The other thing I found a little less convenient when I got into the car for the first time were the steering wheel controls. Now, the steering wheel controls for the cruise control on the left-hand side of the steering wheel are fine, and it took all of 5 seconds to figure out. But the buttons on the right-hand side, well, they don't really tell you what they do other than the Google Assistant button, so you kind of have to press and figure it out, or you use a really cool feature that's in the touchscreen, and I'll show you that very shortly. Another nice detail in the Polestar 2 is a spot in the center console in front of the shifter that allows you to put your cell phones. It's actually a wireless charging pad on the left, and the right-hand side has 2 USB-C ports that are hidden under some rubber flaps. Now, you can actually put 2 cell phones in this location and has a little divider in the middle that prevents them from sliding around. The Polestar has decided to keep some essential items as physical buttons in the center console, and I think this is a fantastic feature because I hate digging through submenus to find some basic things like front and rear defrost. Now, those are 2 physical buttons, as well as the hazard light button, and you've got the volume knob with a play pause button in the middle of it. Now, the nice thing about the play pause button, and you might not know this, is that when you're on a phone call but you're not on the phone screen in the touch screen, you can actually hang up on a call with the play pause button. Just another nice little detail. One very cool feature that I really like about the Polestar's seats, not only are they electric on both sides and very adjustable in terms of height and adjustment and everything that's normal, lumbar as well, you've got the ability to extend the base of the seat like in some of the European cars that are out there. Now, all you have to do is grab the handle that's underneath the front and you can fully extend or fully retract it to allow for better thigh support. You can adjust the steering wheel. It's both telescopic and adjustable in height, and you can pull it out actually quite far, so I'm sure most people will be able to find a comfortable driving position. Something that I really like in the Polestar 2 is the fact that the people at Polestar, when they were designing the window buttons, did the smart thing that I think should also be standard across the industry, is the fact that the buttons are all auto up and auto down. That is not just the front windows, but the front and the rear. The Polestar 2 also has front and rear heated seats. Now, this particular model doesn't have the leather seats, and I'll get into the specs and details after this segment, just before I take this car for a drive, to let you know what's available and what things are going to cost you. Now, when it comes time to drive away, like I mentioned earlier in the video, all you have to do is get in the car, as long as you got the key fob in your pocket, press on the brake pedal, pull down on the lever, and the car is ready to go. If you want to put the car in park, you just press the P button right here, and the car is in park, the brakes get applied, and you're ready to get out. So what about this Android Automotive and the great touchscreen in the middle of this dash? This is the main screen of Android Automotive. Now it is a press car and it's got a profile that was already there, and I've got whatever apps were installed by whoever had this car before. Each section of this main screen is customizable at a certain level. If you wanted to change anything that's in here or move apps around, you tap on this icon at the top, and then you can basically press, hold, and drag to the section that you want to move the app to it. Once that's done, you go back to the main home screen by tapping on the home button, which is the little bar at the bottom of the screen, and then you've got other apps that are available simply by swiping down like I just did. Same thing for the radio section. If you wanted to play YouTube music or something else, you can swipe down and get those apps, and then swipe back up to get back to the main app that was running last. Another little detail is that Polestar has included a little cleaning cloth, and this little packet can be found in the center console. And you can use it to clean the touchscreen because obviously it's a fingerprint magnet. Now, with the door open and me sitting in the car, the touchscreen becomes active. Fortunately, Polestar has thought of that, and you can lock the touchscreen by pressing and holding the home button on the bottom of the screen for 2 seconds, and it becomes locked so you can clean the screen. Once you're done, just press and hold the home button again, and it unlocks the screen, making it functional again. As I mentioned, there may be some things that are less intuitive to some users, like I experience with the right side of the steering wheel. Fortunately, Polestar has come up with a solution for that, and it's directly in the center touchscreen. All you have to do is tap on the icon here with the grid, and then select the user manual icon here at the bottom. Once you're there, then you can select the interior. And in this particular case, I want to find the right steering button information, so I tap on that. It shows me the base information, and I can slide a little bit to the right for other stuff. But I can click on Read More, and it tells me exactly what everything is for. There's also a related information section at the bottom. Now I've closed the driver's side door, and I've got the seatbelt on because I've put the car in drive, because I want to show you one of the features that I thought was really cool in this car. And that is this icon on the top left here, which is the reverse camera, which is actually a 360-degree view camera. It uses all of the cameras around the car to create an overhead view and shows you things that are close to the car, and beeps as well because it's got all of the parking sensors all around it. If you're interested in getting much more detailed information on the menus of the Polestar 2 and Android Automotive, then please click on that subscribe button, because I'm making a video about the Polestar 2's Android Automotive menus. Now, it's a long segment, so I couldn't include it in this video, but if you're subscribed and have the notification bell checked off, then you'll be notified when I release it. You may also be interested in knowing that I have social media links, and I'll put them up here on the screen and in the description below. Got an Instagram account with all sorts of EV and non-EV related things. I've got a Facebook page where you can read news and ask me questions. I've got a website that sort of catches everything, and I've also got a Ko-fi account. So if you feel like buying me a coffee on Ko-fi, I would greatly appreciate it. So don't forget, be sure to be subscribed to my channel if you don't want to miss my future videos, because I have absolutely no posting schedule. If you're sitting in the back of the Polestar 2 and you're not 6'5", you're not going to have a problem. Now, this front seat is positioned for me as a driver at 5 feet 8 inches tall, and I'll put that in meters up here somewhere because I never remember what my height is in meters. And the seating position for the person in the back is actually quite comfortable. Now, I have some decent thigh support here because the floor of the Polestar 2 is actually quite low, allowing for my feet to get underneath the front seat and be pushed forward a little bit. Now, I do encounter something under the seat that prevents me from putting them any further forward, but this is still pretty comfortable, and I think on a longer road trip, I would be okay. Now, the center console is on a hump in the middle of the Polestar 2, much like with a traditional gas-powered car. They've got a hump, and I'm guessing they've got batteries under there or something else. So that means that if you're sitting in the middle, you're not going to be in the best position. Now, that means to me this is more of a 4-passenger car than a 5-passenger car, but if you're stuck and you put somebody in the middle, you'll be able to get by. Another feature in the back here is an armrest that you can pull down, which is where the skis can be passed through with the ski opening in the back seats. You've got 2 power ports. These are USB-C hidden under this little cover here, as well as the buttons for the rear seat heaters. You've also got the rear air and heating controls that allow you to turn the vents on and off by turning the dial on the vent, as well as changing the direction left and right or up and down. A couple other interesting things that I found in the back here are the hooks that they've got here, where you can hook a bag or I guess a jacket or a shirt if you really have to. And then you've got the lights that are back here. These are touch sensitive lights. Essentially when you tap on it, it will turn on and then turn off again. There's also a little light that's beside it, so when you're driving at night, it's a mood light. It also offers hard plastic backs on the front seats, as well as some nets to be able to store some things in them. Now it's nice because they have this on both the driver and the passenger seat. And then I've saved the best for last. That's this panoramic sunroof. Now, much like in my Ioniq 5 preview video that I released recently, this car has a full glass roof, which is amazing. And like I said in that last video, I wish that my car had this and that I wish the Kia EV6 had it as well, because in my opinion, this is just beautiful and gives you such an open, airy feeling in the car. But the big question is, what does it cost? Now, Polestar has kept things relatively simple, offering 2 variants, 3 option packs, and 3 features that can be added. Now, I'm not a big specs guy, so I'm not going to put a ton of things up here on the screen, but I will put the basics and the most important things. The 2-wheel drive variant, being a front-wheel drive, which is a little bit of a surprise, has a 427 kilometer range with a 78 kilowatt hour battery. It offers 228 horsepower and 243 pound-foot of torque. Now, that particular model will cost you 49,900 Canadian. This means that it's excluded from the federal $5,000 federal rebate, but it is applicable for the $8,000 Quebec provincial rebate. Now, the all-wheel drive model, that's what I've got here, is far more powerful. It only loses 27 kilometers of range. It's rated at 400 kilometers of range, but it will cost you $56,900. What does that extra $7,000 get you? Well, it gets you an all-wheel drive package that gives you 402 horsepower and 487 pound-feet of torque. Now, being priced at $56,900 Canadian dollars means it is excluded from the Canadian $5,000 federal rebate, but being under $60,000, it is applicable for the $8,000 Quebec provincial rebate. Now, the 3 options that you can change or add are the paint color. The extra paint color is going to cost you $1,400 Canadian dollars. You can also change the wheels for an extra $1,400. These are 19-inch. You can go to a 20-inch. And then there's the ventilated Napa leather with reconstructed wood deco. Now, the Napa leather will give you the optional ventilated seats, which you don't get in this material seat that's in this particular model here. Now, that extra leather and deco and ventilated seats is going to cost you an extra 5,000 Canadian dollars. As mentioned, there are 3 feature packs. These 3 feature packs are the Plus Pack, the Pilot Pack, and the Performance Pack. Now, the Performance Pack is fairly self-explanatory and is going to run you an extra $6,500 Canadian. And what it gives you is some 20-inch wheels with some very sticky rubber. You also get some Öhlins coilover adjustable shocks. You get Brembo gold 4-piston calipers at all 4 wheels, as well as some gold seat belts. Now, the middle pack that I talked about was the Pilot Pack. Now, the Pilot Pack doesn't only add smart cruise control or their driver assist, it also adds a bunch of safety features, and I'll have those listed up here. So it's kind of an option, but you kind of really want it for all the safety features that are included in a lot of other cars. And the Pilot Pack is going to cost you an extra 4,500 Canadian dollars. Now, the last pack to consider is the Plus Pack. Now, being on the East Coast here in the province of Quebec with cold winters, I think this one is not really an option because it adds a heat pump, and it also adds heated steering wheel, heated washer nozzles, and heated rear seats. Now, there are some other things, and I'll list them here, but it's an extra 5,500 Canadian dollars to get this. So to me, that's not really an option. In the province of Quebec, you kind of need it. Now, with all that out of the way, let's see how this thing drives. So what's it really like to drive the Polestar 2? Well, I can tell you that the first time I got in this car and I hammered it, oh my God, it goes from nothing to illegal way too quickly. This is definitely not my e-niro EV. The power is instant and it's very very strong from the beginning with no spin whatsoever. If you've been in a Tesla Model 3 Performance all-wheel drive, then you'll know what I mean. Now, the one thing that I noticed, well, there are a couple things that I noticed. The first thing that I noticed when I sat in the car is the fact that the seating position is definitely lower than what I'm used to. The ride comfort is far more sporty. This is definitely not something that goes over bumpy gravel roads very smoothly. As you can tell from this on-ramp, off-ramp, the condition of our roads are terrible, and there's quite a few potholes that have been patched, but even though it's patched up, the car still transmits every single bump into the cabin. The steering does get a little bit of the feel, but it handles it quite well. It's like being on a ride in an amusement park. It's not the best thing in the world. This is the province of Quebec in Canada, not a third world country. You would think you wouldn't have to do slalom around potholes to avoid damaging your car, but that's the way it is here. Now, the ride comfort on the highway is pretty good, considering the suspension is much more stiff than in my car. When the roads don't have tons of bumps in them, and in the province of Quebec that isn't very often, the ride is excellent and very smooth. But the handling is phenomenal. Now, this car in a curve at speeds that I would not do with my e-niro is very impressive. Now, even though this is the all-wheel drive that does not have the performance pack, which means the suspension, the 20-inch wheels, and the Brembo brakes, the car turns, it sticks. It's really impressive. Let's try this on-ramp, off-ramp situation right here. This is a 25 kilometer per hour curve. 50, 55, and accelerate to 80. It is very, very cool. And go. 70. To over 100 kilometers an hour. Very impressive. Now, as for the adaptive cruise control, it actually does a pretty good job. So the Pilot Pack, which adds all of the smart safety features as well as the adaptive cruise, is in this car, and when I activate it with the button on the left side of the steering wheel, it basically will hold the car in its lane and keep a distance with the vehicles that are in front of it. Now, the one thing that I did notice is that it's a little bit more aggressive in how it handles the centering of the car in the lane, and it's a little bit different than what I'm used to. Now let's set the Pilot Assist. It's at 100 kilometers an hour. If I press the up button, it increases in increments of 5 kilometers per hour, and if I press and hold, it'll go in increments of 1 kilometer per hour. Now, the one thing that I noticed while using the Pilot Assist in the Polestar 2 is that it's a little bit more aggressive in its corrections than I'm used to. Now, it does a good job staying in the lane as long as it's very straight, but if I let go of the steering wheel and there's a pretty aggressive curve coming up ahead, the car tends to take the outside of the lane and then turn in. It still does well. It's just that it's not as smooth a transition as I'm used to. Now, that indicator is telling me that I have to keep my fingers on the wheel, even though my hands were right beside the steering wheel, within about 2 millimeters. But it's warning me that I had nothing in terms of pressure on the steering wheel. All I had to do was grab it and tug it around a little bit. Now, if I were to let go and wait another 15 seconds, the Pilot Assist would turn off completely, and that means the car would decelerate as well. So it's important that you pay attention and keep your hands on the wheel at all times. Another thing that I really like about the Polestar 2 is the one-pedal driving. Now, the one-pedal driving in this car is currently set to standard, and I've got creep mode turned off. In other words, when I get to a stop, the car completely stops and will not move forward like a gas-powered car does when you let off the brake. It is by far one of my favorite features of an electric car. I wish my e-niro had it. Something else that I noticed when I was driving in this car was the fact that the rear view is a little more restrained than what I'm used to as well. Now, usually I've got a nice wide open view in my car, even though I've got headrests in the back. Now, the two headrests that are back there right now, they partially obscure the view. It's not really that's the issue. It's the rear hatch being sloped like a sedan, and the tail is a little higher, so the opening is kind of narrow in terms of height. It's still fine, I can see very well, and it's not an issue, but it's definitely not as open as what I'm used to. It actually reminds me of the Tesla Model Y. One of the things that I really enjoy about this car being Android Automotive is the instrument cluster in front of me. Now right now it's set to the normal instrument cluster, and I'll let you have a look at that up close here on the screen. And there's a button right here, this little toggle button, if you can see it on that other camera, I hope you can. When you tap on it, it changes things over. It switches the interfaces that were there and moves them over to put them on the small corners. And in the main section, you've got Google Maps that appears. So you don't have to have Google Maps on the center screen. You can have it in the middle here. Now, driving on this highway with a very nice road surface, the car is nice and quiet. One of the things that I also noticed was that the panoramic roof doesn't make a lot of noise. Now, when I test drove the Model Y and made the video about it, it's one of the first things that I noticed when I was driving on the highway was the whistling, or not whistling, but wind noise coming from the leading edge of that glass panoramic roof. The Polestar 2 doesn't have that problem. So what do I think of the Polestar 2? I think it's a great electric car, and not only that, I think it's a fantastic car in general. If you're looking at a Tesla Model 3 or other cars in this size category that are gas powered and in this price range, and I think you should seriously consider the Polestar 2 because it offers a ton of features, a lot of safety, and some pretty excellent handling, even if you don't have the performance pack. Now, with that being said, as I mentioned earlier in this video, this is more of a 4-passenger car than a 5-passenger car because of the hump that's in the middle of the rear seat. I don't think it'd be very convenient to have 3 adults in the back, so it's just something to consider when you're shopping for a vehicle in this size category. I'd like to start by saying a big thank you to Polestar Canada for trusting me with their really nice car for the week. It was a fantastic experience, and I hope that I can do it with other manufacturers because it's a lot of fun. Although it was a little daunting, this is the first time I have to do this kind of a review, and making 2 videos in 1 week is not the easiest thing to do. Now, it's a heck of a learning experience. But none of this could have been possible without your help. I really do appreciate you watching my channel. It means the world to me that I'm able to do this, and even though it's a hobby, it's something that I really enjoy and want to do as long as I can. So thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. And if you could consider please clicking on that subscribe button, it really would help. I would love to hit 10,000 subscribers before the 31st of October. I know that's a little ambitious, but hey, if you don't set goals, you'll never hit them. Over the last year, I've been getting some requests for t-shirts from some of my viewers. Now, if this is something that you'd be interested in terms of purchasing a t-shirt from me, then please put a comment in the comment section below and let me know that you would be interested in a t-shirt, and let me know what size. And if there are enough people that are interested, then I'll put up a price somewhere on my website and let you know that you can purchase them. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos, please put them in the comment section below. And as always, thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch my video. This is my channel about electric cars from the perspective of a first-time EV owner. This is the Doug DeMiro again. Now, I think this gives it a distinct advantage over the Tesla Model 3, which does not have a hatchback. When it comes to opening the trunk on the Polestar, there isn't a button on the hatch. It's got 2 ways of opening the rear trunk. Well, actually, there is a front trunk, so that wasn't totally incorrect. If you've been following my channel for the last couple of years, then you'll know that most of the most of my review videos of electric cars. Now there are kids running by, and I need to start over. Then you'll know that my EV review videos are directly compared. Son of a Schlitz. If you've been following my channel, I'm distracted by a cat, I'm distracted by the kids playing with the dog, I'm distracted by the noise. Yay! As well as the measurement from here to the floor of the car so that you get a better idea of what. And now another car goes by on a street that goes nowhere and I have to start over for the 4 billionth time. Yay! And a couple design things that I thought were pretty interesting. Now the Polestar 2 doesn't have a Blue Jays. A whole family of Blue Jays. It just makes sense. There's no real reason to have to press a button to start your electric car. Of course there's a plane. If there wasn't a plane in one of my videos, it wouldn't be one of my videos, would it? You might also be interested in knowing that I have social media links. I've got an Android Auto. Yeah. And I've got a Ko-fi account. If you feel like supporting me by buying me a coffee on Ko-fi, then it would, well, Plus Pack. And I think that the Plus Pack is going to be very important here in the province of Quebec. And of course, there's a plane. Now the Plus Pack offers you the heat pump, the heated rear seats, heated steering water. Yeah, it's because it's got the heated washer fluid nozzles and steering wheel.